You think of an athlete, quote unquote, as like a person that does A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. Now you're like, I don't do A, B, and C.
After competing in college, went to PT school, I literally stopped working out.
It's like redefining what it means to be an athlete.
I love that I'm a national champion. Me not being able just to like say that.
Yeah, why not? Why can't you say that?
Yeah.
You're actively omitting it. Yes.
You met Barack Obama. You shook his hand. Do I feel like a national champion currently in my life? I think
you can't consider yourself an athlete.
Yeah. I think I've realized recently even that I don't have to work out at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to practice.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have to do anything today, which again, at first is like so freeing.
When you're done with that part of your life, where do you go?
This is the No Former Athlete podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by my friend and Olympic gold medal winning athletic trainer, Katie Donnelly. She puts on her hosting hat to help me share some context into my own athletic background. We'll talk about the identity shift athletes experience when they step away from the field or the court, and how the lessons, discipline, and mindset of training continue to shape everyday choices. We'll also tackle the emotional side, grieving the loss of structure, team camaraderie, and external validation.
I am here to talk to Erin about her background as an athlete. What's your experience?
Played 3 sports growing up, predominantly, other than my bowling league way back in the day, but we don't have to go back that far. We were called the gutter balls. I'll leave it there.
That's adorable.
We were 8.
Still counts.
Thank you. Played basketball, volleyball, soccer growing up. Actually went on to play college basketball. I was a D3 NCAA athlete. Technically was better at soccer growing up. Could have actually potentially gone D1, which for me at the time, I decided junior year that I chose basketball over soccer to continue in, which my personality, all of that was kind of a big step of just like making a decision that was based more purely on joy. I really enjoyed basketball a lot more. I knew that like day in, day out, showing up for practice, all of that, I was like, I'm going with basketball. But I was very fortunate. I had a lot of success on club school teams growing up. And that identity piece hit hard. Totally knew when my sports career was ending. Knew I wasn't going to be going on to play beyond college. Played all 4 years of college. Randomly went out on a big concussion my last game of college. But beyond that, that wasn't going to make a difference anyway. And definitely, for me personally, jumped right into, okay, I'm going to PT school. So I knew from the time I started college that my goal was to go to school for physical therapy. It's a doctorate program. I knew it was going to be 3 years after school. So just recently, things have been coming up more as I kind of dissect different things in my life of, oh, wow, I really just jumped directly from here's my identity as an athlete to, oh, okay, now I'm a physical therapist. And I just glommed on to kind of the next thing. Again, it was a step I was always prepared for, more or less. Totally love my experience, love being a physical therapist, but have also been surprised more recently, hence starting some new things in my life, starting some podcasts. I mean, being a guest on your podcast.
Being a guest on my podcast,
yes,
on your podcast.
Exactly.
Yes.
I definitely just kind of jumped identity to identity and enjoyed PT school. I'm so glad that I have the knowledge that I have, but thinking back on it, I'm like, it was just kind of like another check off the list. And then I started working and like I got to like my second year of work and I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is going to be. Like I go and I see my patients and all of that, which is wonderful. And again, I say this as a like, yeah, you're like changing people's lives, you know, one-on-one. You're helping them with different aspects that make a big difference in their life. And I love that. But there's also this part where I'm like, why exactly did I choose this? And how do I have almost a bigger effect? And I think some of that kind of has been reeling in my brain recently of the identity piece. Okay, did I just choose that because I needed something
You needed the next thing?
I needed something next.
Yeah.
Okay, physical therapy will still keep me close to treating athletes without fully committing to being an athletic trainer. Because too, even from in college, I was like, okay, do I go med school? Do I go physical or do I go athletic training? And for me, I was like, I don't want that schedule. No. With that, there was that piece of like, oh, I can still stay connected to sports.
Sure.
So I always knew through even going into PT school, all of that like, oh yeah, I still want to treat athletes beyond, which I have. And I've loved it. And I absolutely love treating my athletes. I love treating all my patients. But there is this part where I'm just like, wow, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about what happens after. And that's when stuff happens.
It's when, for a lot of people, like there's this perception that life finally begins after. And one thing that I've noticed in my 11 years of working in professional sports is like there's this almost like belief that life will start once you retire. You can have kids when you're done playing. You can change your name, like the name change on the jersey happens when, you retire, and now you can like step into your new life when it's like that has sort of been for many different reasons from society at large and other systems that sort of perpetuate that outside of the sports world. But there is this notion that like traditionally, like everything is focused on like sport, and that sport is your life. And nothing can really happen outside of that. I think the other thing that's unique specifically in the professional level is that like it is hard to separate that, or it's hard to sort of wrestle with this fulfillment outside of your identity as an athlete, because so much of their off-field life, essentially 24/7 of their off-field life, is revolved around supporting their minutes on the court or the field or whatever sport they play on, the bike, the whatever, because what they eat, how they sleep, how they recover. Can they go on hikes? Can they even do other sports? Can they ski? If they're not a skier, they can't really ski, because then what if they get injured and then they can't play on their season and whatever. So I've noticed with the athletes that I've worked with, it's hard to find another identity outside of being an athlete when you're in it, right? And so then when you're done with that part of your life, where do you go? And I think the other hard part is like we're in a world of social media right now. So kind of things build into each other. So like athletes have their own brands now. So it's like you got to build your brand. In order to build your brand, you have to keep playing. And in order to keep playing, you have to keep being healthy. And
as Alex and I have been talking more recently and stuff just about like no former athlete concepts as a whole, even just that idea of performance and being on a stage. Growing up, it's like for me personally, I would always think of like theater, musical, getting up on a stage and singing. I would absolutely never. Again, I don't have those skills, but like, no, that's like way too much center of attention, like doing all that. And then it's like, until I was older and I was looking back, I was like, oh no, we were performing every game. We were out there. Oh, yeah. The audience was there to watch you play. You were using your physical abilities.
People bought tickets. People gave money to see you.
You're so in like team mode. I'm just showing up. You're thinking about so many other things. I never took that as like, oh yeah, you perform for other people. And then all of a sudden, nobody's watching what you're doing. And again, this, I don't know if this sounds vain or not, but it's just kind of that like, oh yeah, like what am I performing for? AKA nothing. No one's looking for that. No one's like, I'm not working towards something for other people for that external validation. Right. And that I know for me has been something to where it's like, I remember not working out anymore, I remember being like, well, you're not competing in anything. So like, why do you deserve a body that is able to? Again, bad way to think about it.
No, but I mean, here's the deal.
Don't
That's
recommend
real.
it. But like, I distinctively remember. And then for me, going through the like PT school training and like learning then also all these things that I was so excited about. And I was like, I love the knowledge base that I have. But sometimes it gets in my way when I just need to do a workout. Because I'm like, oh, okay, what is my form? Okay, how am I holding myself? Okay, am I doing these things? And again, that's just how my brain works. And so I was super like, after competing in college, went to PT school, I literally stopped working out. You would think I would work out more because I was actively learning exercises, learning all these things of how to help other people.
I
right?
cannot. No, you know how many ailments I have right now. I do not rehab myself. I rehab other people.
We're the worst.
We're the worst.
We're the worst.
At the end of the day, I'm tired. I just want to sleep. I can't help myself. I'm helping everybody else.
Right.
Yeah. So it's, yeah. So there's something that you glossed over that I'm just going to reel us back as the host that I am. Can you talk more about when you won a national championship? Yeah, that's right, folks.
I know where you're going. Yes, I did leave that out of my history. And again, self-confidence, whatever you want to add after that. Yes, I was fortunate enough to be on a national championship winning team as a contributing player. Yes, I'm a national champion. And you bring up a good point. You bring up a great point. Because, too, I think in reflection and in how I've thought about it, I feel awesome about it. I love that I'm a national champion.
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel like a national champion currently in my life? Not necessarily. But I think there's so much of a performance aspect. I couldn't go win a national championship right now in how my body is and how I feel in my training. Not that anybody's expecting me to be able to go win a national championship right now, but I do think there's so much tied to that in like me not being able just to like say that and put that forward.
Yeah, why not? Why can't you say that?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I do because it crosses my mind, so it's
well, like you're actively saying,
it's
you're
an
actively
active
choosing
deletion.
to not say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're actively omiting it.
Like if I'm
So, like,
I'm
why do you
filling
feel
out a
like you have to do that?
resume.
Yeah.
If I'm filling out a resume, you're like, oh yeah, okay, collegiate national champion, because there's certain components of being an athlete that are desirable to people hiring people and all
Sure.
of that.
Yeah.
And when it's written on paper, it's like, okay, yeah, that's just a thing that I did. But you're right that like in identity pieces, and I've had friends that I've known for, a certain period of time, and then a conversation will come up, or usually
I remember when I found out,
another friend.
Like, I'm what?
Usually
I'm in the presence of greatness, you guys.
Usually I'm in a conversation with a friend and another friend, and then like something like this will come up, be like, oh yeah, I played college basketball, blah, blah. And then it's usually the other friend that's like, come on, like say the other part. You're a national champion.
Yes.
You met Barack Obama. You shook his hand,
Yes.
And then people get mad when they're like, how long have I known you? And I haven't known that.
Yeah.
So I probably haven't fully unpacked that. And I do think that there's a piece of bragging, you know what I mean? Like, I think societally, we're just built up in this like, and again, maybe it's an as a woman thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a, just in society as you're growing up when you're younger, it's like, okay, well, yeah, but like, you don't lead with that. You don't want to brag. You don't want to be too boastful about it.
Pride is a very interesting emotion in this society.
And also like in sport. Mm-hmm. Because like, absolutely, if I'm talking about my team, sure, I'm saying it right off the bat. Yeah, DePaul women's basketball has won 2 national championships.
Shout out. Shout out.
And so things like that, it's like, yeah, when it's a bigger thing and it's a part of a team, it's so much easier to be like, oh yeah, I played my role. I played my role within the team. Mm-hmm. I did what I was supposed to. Mm-hmm. I showed up. But then, yeah, it's like, where does that lay on you independently, individually?
What do you think that did for you? How do you feel like that played into your identity as an athlete, and then also your identity when that was done? Because was that your last game?
No. So we won the national championship my junior year.
Okay.
Interestingly, so the year that we won the national championship, we went 34-0, so we were undefeated. Because I was not a senior that year, we continued into the next season, and I think we actually ended up 50-some games and 0. So like we actually then continued to not lose until like our last regular season game of my senior year. Like that's a lot of games. Yeah. That's a lot of games.
It's hard to stay on top.
Until I was on an undefeated national championship team, like the whole like root for the underdogs, like there's totally still a time and a place for it.
For sure.
Personally, even when I go into watching March Madness every year, things like that, I'm like, I'm watching those number 1 seeds. I'm watching that because it is so fucking hard. It is so hard
and the air
to
is
stay on top.
and the air is thin at the top. Nobody wants you to win.
So thin.
I know.
No one has anything to
lonely.
lose. They're gonna throw their best at you. Literally,
I know.
nothing. Yeah. That could be a whole separate episode, is just talking about that season.
Yeah. Well, just because you're not a current traditional athlete on a team, do you consider yourself a national champion?
Yeah.
So you still consider yourself a national champion? Because you are.
Yeah. Because I know I'm supposed to.
Right. So, like, where do you think that block is coming from?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I have had those moments where I am kind of resident hype woman for a lot of people in my life. I'm always that person that's kind of calling out, boosting up other people. And I'd have to be like, yeah, you're an athlete still. Yeah, why would you not say that you're an athlete? And then literally it is so hard for me to say I'm an athlete.
Right.
Like that sentence is hard for me. And I've been grappling with it a lot recently of like, here I am, creating this whole space for people to talk about it, for, no former athletes to talk about it. But it's hard for me personally, to say I am an athlete, because for me, I know I couldn't still do the things that I could do. That's not the right answer.
Interesting.
That's not the right answer. But
what right answer for what?
In terms of like, again, it's like that. Oh yeah, no former athlete. You're always an athlete. That's the identity. You don't just like magically lose that identity piece. Like you still were an athlete. You were a national champion. So like, oh yeah, I'm a national champion.
Like you're always
That's
a national
not taken
champion.
away from you.
Right. Exactly.
So in the same way that national champion isn't taken away from you, like athlete isn't just magically taken away from you.
So it's interesting. You're speaking on like that piece of identity, like the objective. I mean, what you just said is like, I don't consider myself an athlete because I'm not doing the same things I used to do. And it's like, that's such an important piece in this conversation to redefine athlete. Like you think of an athlete, quote unquote, as like a person that does A, B, and C. And now you're like, I don't do A, B, and C, and or D, E, F, whatever.
Yeah.
And therefore,
yeah,
you can't consider yourself an athlete. But but you're always going to be a national champion.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
you'll always be an athlete. Like it's just it's like redefining what it means to be an athlete.
I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah. I'm pivoting slightly, but like, do you feel like you have mourned the traditional setting of athletics?
I think I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I think I've realized recently even that has needed to happen. That was a step that was missed.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder how common that is for people across the board versus a move on to the next thing, avoid and fill with something else versus just truly like processing and being like, yeah, no, this is going to suck. Like you're not going to play again. And I think it's interesting that
you're not going to play in the same way again.
Yes. In the same, like you're not going to be a part of this team anymore. And again, this is kind of what has, bolstered even the creation of this whole podcast and all of that is just like, yeah, the more that we can talk about the things that we're all going through in all of our different ways that we relate to sport and all of that, just for people to hear. Because I still distinctly remember like post-college, my dad even was like, hey, you're not going to be playing basketball anymore. Even just like think about how your nutrition needs to be different. And, and I was lucky that like he was talking to me about that. Your workouts are going to be different. Like you just have to kind of find a routine, find something that you like. The
structure's gone.
He went through his own, no former athlete. He played baseball in college. So he was like, hey, start thinking about it now. And it's like, even as much as you hear that, and when you have people who are like trying to predict those needs for you, I was like, well, I'm in PT school. I don't have enough time for a 45-minute lift, so it's not going to be worth it. It's not going to do the thing. Da, 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 da.
Right.
And it's like, Erin, go for a fucking 20-minute walk it will be better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, at that time, it doesn't feel like that. And so I remember just having this whole break from structure and just being like, I don't have to work out at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to practice.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have to do anything today because no one's expecting me to show up for anything today, which again, at first is so freeing. I played, 3 sports my whole life up till college. Like I always had to practice. A lot of times I had 2 practices a day. Like I was that kid in high school. That's great. But oh shit, like I've never had to make myself really just go work out on my own.
Yeah.
I just went to practice.
Yeah.
So it's like created so many more levels of, okay, it's nice to be free of the structure, not being told when you need to show up somewhere, what you need to eat, when you need to eat it, all of that. But at least for me, it's like I was also so trained within that structure.
Totally.
And even having somebody looking out for me and being like, hey, make these changes, start thinking about this. It maybe wasn't until like almost 10 years after that. Hi, welcome, I'm Erin. That she now started really like thinking about it and breaking it apart and being like, oh, I think I needed to like grieve that part. Because yes, you can play pickup. Alex and I have played in a couple co-ed basketball leagues, things like that. You can play in adult leagues, all of that. Yeah. But nothing's going to be the same as those 4 years that we played collegiate basketball.
Right. The meaning is different. I think, too, there's something about like, I don't know, agency is the word that keeps coming to mind when you're like, oh, yeah, now I'm doing this on my own and no one's telling me what to do. I have to find it within. Yeah. And then also remember that, like, no, you've always had agency.
Yeah. You chose to do what the team was doing. You chose to be a part of it because, again, it's like, yeah, that feels right. Like that always felt so right to me.
Yeah. But sometimes that can get kind of lost, I would imagine, in this identity piece of like, this is what an athlete means and looks like and does. And
Yeah. And I think too, like as I've been reflecting on it more recently, there's also that part of, I feel very fortunate. I had a great sports career in general. We had good success. All the thoughts are like, yeah, you did awesome. You're supposed to only look back on that with, good, happy thoughts. For me, like my athlete time, my sports time, all of that is joy, goodness. I'm proud of it. I'm glad of all the things that I did. But then like even how you were just asking, like, do you think that you mourned it or did you grieve it? It's like, no, because that would be putting a negative connotation and like a negative feeling around this thing that's supposed to be like, no, you had all this success. It's great. Sure. You're a national champion. Yeah, but it's also okay to feel bad that that's gone without dwelling on it.
Well, I think, and I think there's always grief in any change because like it's a end of one thing and it's the start of another. But like, I think there's always grief in any decision and choice because like, even if it's the quote unquote right choice for you, whatever right means, there's still grief in what you perceive could have been. Or what was that won't be again in a different way. You know what I mean? What do you hope that people get out of this podcast?
I hope this podcast opens up dialogue and allows people to be able to speak about their own experience. I want people to be able to relate to sport and reflect on like, again, it's such a big component of so many of our lives, that either still do identify as an athlete or don't identify as an athlete anymore. However people personally, are attached to that. Reflect on that and realize how much or little, but how much people's sports history still sticks with them. How it's still affecting their lives potentially in ways that they don't realize. Again, that's how it kind of presented for me. Yeah. In like little things that are super not sport related in my mind. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I respond to that situation because I'm an athlete. Oh, I responded to that. Oh, I made that decision because that's how my brain and my body's trained as an athlete. And being able to work through reclaiming in a way. Again, I don't think people lose that identity of an athlete, but we all go through this period where we do need to grieve it. We do need to grieve it. We need to mourn it and know that we're no longer competing regularly, but that it's still a part of you.
Yeah. And also, how do you honor the part that's molded you into it's been a big influence to who you are. Yeah. And who you've become. Yeah. And who you will become.
Absolutely.
Like we're always becoming.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
also like honoring that part as well
Yeah.
in those experiences.
And I think sport specifically, just like in the human experience, is a little bit unique in the sense that like most people hit their prime or are at the top of their game or whatever in their early 20s or are done playing, quote unquote, you know, whether they're done after college, like you're done when you're 22, 23 years old.
I mean, just
Life is long.
life is long.
Yeah, you
Just
know, or
starting.
you know,
Yeah.
you hope it's always long,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those where it's like that potentially is such a small portion, but it was so much
Yeah.
of that small portion that it
Yeah.
just dictated so many things.
Yep.
Again, whether depending on people's personal relationships to that, whether that's good or bad, you know, that's kind of for each person. But I do just think it needs to be honored and discussed in a way that like really allows people to kind of sit and reflect on it, continue to have these conversations with people on all levels. You know, whether people didn't play past high school, whether people are professional athletes, Olympians that have retired. There's still so much that comes after that.
Yeah.
But still involves you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're still an athlete in the sense of you don't just lose what you've done that helped shape
Yeah.
who you are.
It can easily become like an external validator or an objective measure of value. And it's like,
Yes.
how do you work through that or reframe self-value in
Absolutely.
in a bubble?
I think there's power, you know, in just acknowledging it and reflecting on it in these conversations of like, yeah, oh, okay. That's why I did that. That's why I made that decision. And that's okay. That's okay. But now I understand myself a little better, understand, you know, other people.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thanks for giving space to that power.
oh yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review. You taking that 5 minutes makes a huge difference and helps us to be able to make more episodes like this. And if you want to see more content in between the episodes, follow us at No Former Athlete on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm so glad you're a part of this No Former Athlete community. And if you know any No Former Athletes that you think I should get in touch with, DM me on Instagram at No Former Athlete. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.